give it up to Miro.
Hi, thank you. I live in the Bay Area. The accent that you hear is Russian, but I've spent most of my life in this country. I am actually older than I look. I've been doing software development since like mid-90s. If you ever ran Napster on your computer in year 2000, you probably ran some of my code. I got involved with cryptocurrencies like 5-6 years ago, doing like mining, trading, did contribute some code and whatnot. And at the same time, I had and still have a fintech company called ArrowPass that used to be and still is a closed-loop payment system for events and for travel, which basically, whenever you buy a tour somewhere, you get a stack of papers. You still do that are vouchers to hotels, cars, doing stuff, entertainment, sometimes meals, etc., etc. And ArrowPass, as a service provider, made this electronic on plastic cards like this. It's basically a chipped NFC card. It's the same technology as the bank cards use for stored value and for different types of authentication. And just this winter, I've realized that since we're developing a merchant network in San Francisco and in a number of cities in Europe, where they have our proprietary terminals to redeem vouchers for the tourists, for us to launch cryptocurrency on top of that is basically a question of one software update. And it became very interesting. Like, we got a lot of new people in the company, new money, new investments, etc., etc. And my passion and my job have merged at that time, at that moment. We've launched a product. It's not in production yet, but it's. I mean, we're going to perform some transactions on testnet today, which is essentially we're using Bitcoin Lightning Network. And what we did is a familiar card and terminal interface into the Lightning Network. So usually people are using Lightning Network as scanning QR codes. And with our product, you have a plastic card, you walk up to the merchant, to a merchant that's on the network, and you transact just like you transact with your Visa or MasterCard. And it's not involving the Visa, MasterCard, Amex networks. It's completely on blockchain. So it's a distributed application, unstoppable code. Once it goes live, the very base layer of that is going to be completely on GitHub. It's going to be open source. There is a way to use it without actually setting up a payment network in a certain geography without talking to anyone. Basically, downloading some code from GitHub, compiling it, putting it onto your NFC-enabled Android device, and it's going to work as a payment terminal. And you're going to be receiving payments into your Lightning Network node. But for that, you will have to also maintain your own Lightning Network node. Same applies to the card. You can buy a white blank card on Amazon, download code from GitHub, compile the PIN code you want, compile the addresses of your Lightning wallets, burn it into the card, and it's just going to work. So this is the very foundational layer of the system that we've actually built, and on top of it, it has APIs and the hooks in order to launch any familiar financial service that is bank-like. If somebody wants to create a cluster of merchants and cardholders that has chargebacks, any levels of KYC, customer support, etc., etc., it's all possible. And it's actually fairly convenient to do so. And ArrowPass as a company, as a corporate entity, so it's building this foundation for everyone, and it will be launching financial services that are going to be revolving around our merchant network on top of the open source foundation. But for example, if somebody in Venezuela wants to launch a similar arrangement, they can do it without talking to us or to their government. So it's kind of refreshing, I think. And it's a play of adoption. Like, probably it's as adoption as we can get. So I myself personally am very interested in promoting this thing. Couple sentences about what is Lightning Network. It's a protocol that's running on Bitcoin layer, on Bitcoin network. And what it does, it brings lightning speed fast payments as a capability to Bitcoin. So it was one of the biggest concerns about Bitcoin, that it's too slow. It takes 20 minutes to process a transaction. There are scaling issues, so this is one of the valid attempts, and it looks like it's becoming successful to scale it up and to make the transactions lightning fast. Transaction happens off-chain between two parties. They both cryptographically sign transaction. The transactions get accumulated, and then whenever the participants feel like it, they can commit it to the blockchain. So they don't have to wait for 20 minutes or for whatever the number of confirmation time to actually get the funds guaranteed. But to receive them, they have to process a batch transaction, an equivalent of batch transaction. In essence, it's very much like any card merchant network, because when Starbucks charges your card, they charge it fairly quickly, but then there is a nightly batch job that settles all the transactions, takes the money from the banks, and they see the money a couple days later. So in case of Lightning Network, we have very inexpensive and fast transactions while transacting, and then whenever, and in our case, in the case of our financial service, it'll be probably a nightly process that settles all the channels, merchants get their money, and we respin the channels again. What I wanted to show you basically is how it works, perform a couple transactions, and then I would be open for questions. So, 3 screens that you can see. The one that says checkout is basically a screencast from a small terminal, and this is basically a little tiny poor man's point of sale system that has programmed coffee and pastry. Then this wallet, it's connected to the same Lightning node as the merchant terminal. These two windows are actually connected to the same Lightning node that is at our office on Treasure Island in San Francisco. And this screen is my wallet at home, a Lightning node that I spun up at home that has $1,600 in Satoshi in testnet Bitcoin. And my card is connected to the same Lightning node as my iPhone, as the wallet on my iPhone. So what I'm gonna do, I want 5 coffees and 5 pastries. So I'm doing the checkout. It's asking me for my PIN code. So now I want you to look at this screen. How quickly would the new transaction show up? This is the transaction ledger. So the last one is 12,000 Satoshis that I just did the test for. I am putting in my PIN, so 150,000 Satoshis are gonna arrive to the merchant's Lightning node. And it's there. So this is the speed of the Lightning network that is operating right now. It may or may not show up in my history, because I've noticed that you need to restart the wallet in order to show the latest transactions. So I'm gonna restart it. Yeah, I think that's the one. It's $8. So that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple on the outside, and that's how it's supposed to be.